I am a psychologist, and I am the director of the Women's Wellness and Counseling Service at the UIHC, and our clinic is for perinatal mental health care, but I'm also the health psychologist for the fertility clinic there. So I've been doing that since 2009, so quite a long time. I kind of got thrown into it. I was told that's what I was going to be doing with none of my own history or background or even understanding of infertility, but it has become one of the most important pieces of my work. I love it. It's really, really important to me. I also work in perinatal loss, and that also is sort of the other area of clinical expertise. Okay, so let me get started. Oh, and before I forget, please ask questions as we're going along, both in the room. People in the room can just yell stuff out if you want or wave so I can see you. I have my glasses on, so I might not see you, but and a comment is fine too. If you're kind of like, oh, that's not my experience, I'd love you to go ahead and interject. And also, I think Emily's going to keep track of people on Zoom. And so I've told her to just stop me as well. And we can kind of take questions or comments as we go. Okay. So, my objectives for today, first, we're just going to talk about emotions. Next, we're going to think about like what aspects of infertility or fertility care are within your control and which are not. Spoiler alert, there's not many that are within your control, right? And just thinking about like ways to let go of those things you can't control. Absolutely, kind of work with the things that you may be able to control a little bit or have some sort of influence over, but letting go of those other things because it ends up being a lot of energy, not well used eventually. So, okay, little like the cat, he's like, yep, no, nothing's under control. Okay, so this next slide, whoops, I am going to make sure it will play. So this is from a movie, the trailer for it. It came out, I think, a couple years ago, but this trailer, I think, really hits on some of the real challenges and things that come up with fertility treatment and for infertility. Okay. Oops, let me go back. So I just thought that hit so many of the marks, so a lot of the elements of the experience. So, and I laugh every time I watch it too. So I like that. So our first objective, kind of looking at emotions. So, whoops. What are some of the feelings, emotions, or mental states that you all associate with infertility? You can yell it out. Yep. What else? Yep. Yep. Uh-huh. Anything else? Yeah, that's a good one. Okay. So let's see what I had. So mine are mostly the hard ones. So we hit a bunch of those. I think numbness and confusion, maybe we didn't come up with. Why me? Why us? Not necessarily an emotion, but it sure brings up a lot of emotion. Sometimes a need to escape the idea of what now, and just kind of being demoralized. Like, boy, we're trying to do everything we can, and it's not happening. Okay. So, a lot of times when I'm talking with people, this is kind of what I'm talking about in terms of emotions. Your emotions do make sense within the context, because very frequently I'll have hear people say, I should not feel this way, right? So rather than judging your emotions, why not just examine them? Asking yourself questions like, how do I feel right now? Thinking about how your body feels. What is that voice inside your head telling you? So those thoughts maybe that are floating around in there. And how am I behaving? Like, what are these things that are going on right now? Sort of grounding yourself in awareness of your state of emotions, not judging it and saying I shouldn't or I should or anything like that, but just kind of taking a close look at it. And then asking yourself, how does my current experience, my emotions compare with what I think I should be feeling? Frequently, I know I'm assuming you guys would think the same thing, but a lot of people are like, I should feel just happy for the things I do have. I should not be jealous of other people because they probably have a hard life too somehow, or all those things that mean whatever it is you're thinking or feeling isn't okay or it's not valid. And, then asking yourself, well, if I should be acting, feeling, or experiencing in a certain way, why is that? And sometimes it's because of these rules, maybe the rules we have for ourselves, maybe the rules we kind of think govern society or our community or our world. Sometimes it's to protect other people. I've heard people say, I need to be strong for my partner, so I don't want to show how scared I am or how upset I am or how much this is affecting me. So, that idea of protecting others, not showing vulnerability, trying to be strong, feeling like I've got to just power through this. I can't be sad when I'm at work. I can't be jealous when I'm at my sister's house who has a new baby, those sorts of things. But then we want to say, like, what happens if we just accept our emotions and ourselves, even when we're messy? And it's even saying that makes me feel like a sense of relief. Like I'm just feeling whatever I'm going to feel, and it's okay. It's valid. Maybe I don't like feeling this way, but it's because of all that I'm experiencing. And that's where we really normalize those emotions and realize they fit what's going on. There's nothing wrong with them. Lots of other people probably feel exactly the same way. And letting go of that, letting go of those rules, those shoulds, those this is not the way I should be looking, whatever, gives you more energy to deal with the situation at hand, right? So expressing emotion can kind of go different ways. Some people express their emotion in sort of an aggressive manner, and this could be all sorts of aggressive things. It could be risky behavior. It could be even self-harm. These are the kinds of ways to express emotion that aren't really healthy. They can lead to just not feeling good and really not being physically okay. Suppressing emotion is probably something a lot of people do. It feels like I can't express this. I need to keep it under wraps. But it ends up not really being helpful to do that, to compartmentalize or to put it on the shelf. Now, mind you, I think sometimes suppressing it until you can be in the right environment to talk about it or feel it or experience it, I think that's reasonable, but not just across the board suppressing. That can kind of lead to depression or just not really good quality of life. So, what's really productive? What are the things that we can do that are productive or effective or positive ways to express our emotion? Some of them might be just talking with other people, maybe talking with a therapist. Lots of people really like journaling. It's getting your emotions out. There's no judgment. Your journal's not going to tell you shouldn't feel that way. And just putting all that stuff in there and just, really feeling those feelings. A lot of times when I'm meeting with people for psychotherapy, we talk about the idea that we didn't solve anything during this hour. We didn't come up with any grand plans even, but the person was able to express some things that maybe they hadn't been able to express anywhere else, to anyone else, where they felt safe. And I'm not going to say you shouldn't feel that way, or they were checking the other person to make sure that person wasn't having a different experience. So, and it's just expressing some of those things that are underneath there that sometimes don't get a chance to come out. So in doing this, and expressing and being productive in terms of expressing our emotions, it really is better for quality of life. It just improves all sorts of things, including your physical health. Studies have been done sort of looking at immune response, inflammatory response. We know that stress causes an immune reaction, and then it causes inflammation within the body. And then you can't sleep, all kinds of bad things, or unhelpful things. So the productive expression of emotion is good physically and mentally. Okay, so thinking about partners, when you guys think about if you may not have a partner, but anybody who does have a partner, what kinds of things come up when you think about your emotions versus their emotions? And maybe there's not differences, so that would be important to hear too. But if you have noticed differences between you and your partner, what do you notice? Mm-hmm. Yep. 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 Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Right. And it's almost like that's one of the few things maybe you can control is what you are doing, not anybody else really, or your body even, but what you can do, following directions, going to appointments, whatever it is, following the timeline. So, yeah. Any other thoughts? Oh, sure. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I will tell you that, and I see mostly women, but jealousy comes up quite a bit. So even if your partner's not feeling that, and that's okay, they just might not be experiencing that. It is a really common feeling, right? So, Well, I'm going to go to the next thing here and the items here. And some of these are going to be ones we just talked about. Some might be different. So differences in coping might come up. Some people really express how they feel, talk about it, and then some partners might keep it all in. And this isn't even really like a male-female thing, although there can be some lines, some sex gender lines there, but I work with same-sex couples as well, and sometimes these are similar patterns for them as well. So keeping it all in versus expressing. Sometimes people are like, you know what, I'm just going to go finish that remodel project, or I'm going to start a project, or I'm going to go mow the lawn, or whatever it might be. And the other person's like, we need to talk about this. We need to figure out a plan. We need to come up with something here. So focusing on it versus like, nope, I'm not even going to think about it right now. And the other person, it's not the person who's not focusing on it and they're trying to stay busy, isn't thinking about it, but they're not wanting to think about it at that moment, right? And sometimes you might flip from one to the other. Might be, I'm overloaded today. I cannot focus on this. I need to take a break. I just talked to someone today, and that's what we talked about. I think you need to take a little bit of a break. There is nothing more you can do, at this point in time. When you talk with the clinic in, a week or so, you're going to get some more information then. So thoughts on any of those? Yep, I see a lot of people nodding their heads. Sometimes the differences in coping have to do with like, what can I do? What can I control? Can I eat better? Can I exercise more? Can I find those really awesome supplements that someone recommended and they got pregnant right after they took them? Those things come up. And then often it's the male partner who's like, nope, I'm fine. I don't need to do any of that. I've had enough. Wives say to me, I'm doing all this stuff and he's not doing anything. And he's sitting there watching TV, eating ice cream, and I'm, going for a run. And it doesn't feel good. But what I talk with people about is that's a different way of coping. It's kind of like just like, I'm going to take care of myself right now. And that means eating ice cream and watching TV. So, but it can feel like this person doesn't care because they're not doing the things that I'm doing to maximize or optimize our chances to conceive. Sometimes there's differences in grieving. When we talk about infertility, we're talking about there's grief, right? So I said I work with people with perinatal loss. Those perinatal loss and infertility overlap. I consider infertility to be a perinatal loss. It's a loss of all kinds of things, of lost opportunities and hopes and dreams, right? So grieving is there, and sometimes there's differences with partners there as well. Some people are just feeling very hopeless, like, I don't know what to do. I'm lost. There's nothing we can do here. And sometimes the other person, or sometimes it could be not even the partner, but other people in your world saying, well, you need to feel hopeful or find the silver lining, at least this or at least that, right? So that kind of difference in grieving can also feel like a dividing line. Another one is seeking support versus isolating. So everybody has a different idea of what support looks like, though, right? So I'll have people say, well, I've only got a couple friends. I'm like, that's support. If it feels like it's right for you, I am good with that. Some people will say, I have a whole network of people, but none of them feel supportive. So it looks however you need it to look, but some people are going to go out, talk, blog, write about their experience, share it far and wide, and social media, things like that. And maybe the other person just kind of does not. Where I think it can be an issue is if it really does become isolating, where almost like kind of collapsing within yourself and not really seeking out other people in any way, shape, or form, and sometimes not even the partner. So, but that can be just a different style, just kind of not keeping it to themselves. Sometimes the difference between people is just really getting triggered all the time, and how can you not is kind of what I think. But then there are some people who just really aren't affected as deeply by some of those reminders. Maybe they've figured out ways to not sort of let it get in there. And that's what I try to help people figure out when we meet, for therapy and stuff like that. But sometimes there's just too many things, even just going to the grocery store, running an errand, going to a neighborhood block party, whatever it might be, trying to predict triggers that you can't always predict. Sometimes it's completely, you would have no idea that that thing would come up. So, but kind of having that difference, not, maybe the other partner's like, why is that bothering you? Kind of like with the jealousy, like, why is that a problem? Or I don't understand that or feel that as well. And it's not a bad or good or right or wrong. None of these are really. They're just differences. And then finally, like with blame and guilt, that's another one. That's another one, unfortunately, where sometimes there's real differences. So my fault, is it your fault? Is it our fault? Honestly, I've talked with more people who are taking the blame than putting the blame on anyone else, saying, I should have thought about this. I should have started sooner. I should have asked these questions. All the I messed up, or even down to my body isn't doing what's supposed to be doing. And I'm like, well, I don't think you can make it. You're doing all the things, but it's my body and it's not, I'm in charge of it, aren't I? And I'm like, well, kind of, but that is that sense of there should be something here I can control and do something about one of us. And sometimes there's this anger just at the world, the fertile world. And then maybe the other partner's kind of like, I don't really think anybody's to blame. And really, I think both are valid. Kind of saying this really isn't anybody else's fault. It's not our fault either. But also being angry. I think I like anger, honestly. I think sometimes it serves a good purpose, not when it's the only thing you feel or express, but, there's a lot to be angry about sometimes. It's unfair. It shouldn't be this way. Exactly. I tell people you're right. It is unfair and it should not be this way. So, okay. Whoops. Go. There we go. Okay. So we're going to look at our second objective now. So just kind of looking at control, what can and can't be controlled. And even though I said at the beginning, not much can be, controlled, there are some things, that we're going to think about. And they may feel like the smaller things, but they still count. And maybe some of them aren't even that small. So that was good. I like to laugh, so I put stuff like that in here. Okay. So what kinds of things, as you're thinking about your experience, what kinds of things have you lost control of as you're trying to build your family? What things come up when you think about that? What you can't control or you've lost control of? Anything? Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yep. Because you're ready to go and you're doing all the things you're supposed to do, and then you're waiting, right? What else? Anything else that? Mhm. Ah, yep. Oh, yep, yep. Feels like you just don't have the energy left to be upbeat, positive, none of that stuff. Yep. Okay, let's see here. So I mentioned timeline, didn't say necessarily emotions, but outcome, your body, the treatment type too. Sometimes people really feel like, hey, I've done all this research and this is what I want to do. And then it's someone says, nope, we can't do that, or that's not going to work, or that's not possible. I always encourage people to have a discussion, with your medical team and just ask them for the answers why it won't, why we can't do that, or why can the timeline be different? Can we do something in between this and the other thing? Because it does feel like I got nothing here. There's nothing I can change. So what are the things that stress you out about infertility? What are the things that we've already talked about some of these, but what are some things that really, as you're going through this process, really bother you? Mm-hmm. Too many things, like a long list of things you're supposed to do. Yep. Mm-hmm. Right. It kind of takes over and pushes everything out to the side, right? Were you gonna say something? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yep. So I've got that. If infertility care costs a lot, not only money, but time, right? Tons of time, taking time off of work, all the things, especially if you live a distance from wherever your clinic might be. It's a lot. It might be like a whole day, to get stuff done and go to the lab and do all the things. And then the emotional resources, of course, like you spend a lot of your time and money, you're going to be emotionally invested in that thing. And that's a big expenditure. Sometimes that's the biggest one. The medical team can't tell you for sure what treatment will work or that treatment will work. You want to have someone who says, I've got you. We're going to figure this out. It's going to happen. And while they're going to try to kind of lead you in that direction, kind of say, we have some ideas. We think, this is going to be the answer here, or do this and we'll learn something at least. You never are going to get that this is for sure going to work, because nobody can know. As much as the science, I think, is wonderful and outstanding, and you can have so much faith in your physicians and your medical team, there's some things that nobody can figure out or know. I don't want to say it's magic, because the magic is when it works, maybe sometimes, but not when it doesn't. That's horrible, So, but not having that sense of surety with anything. People who are not dealing with infertility, who don't understand how hard it is, right? That is very stressful. And sometimes it is the people you really thought would get it and be there for you. And normally they are. Let's say normally they're right there. They're your best friend, your mother, your sister, whoever it might be. And they just don't quite get it. And sometimes it's the people who you never would have expected who do, but dealing with, other people saying, not understanding how upset you might be, or not understanding how much time or money it's taking, or making assumptions that it's going to work, like, of course it will, right? And you're like, well, I don't know. So that's a hard one. And then this one, which comes up all the time, is you can do everything right and still not get what you want. And I know that applies to most things in life, right? But the more you work, the more money you spend, the more time you devote, the emotional energy, it feels like such an investment. There must be some outcome that matches this investment. And sometimes it just doesn't. And sometimes it can be this contemplation of what if I never have children? I did everything right. This has been my dream. And what do I do now? What do I do now if I can't have this? I'm working with someone right now, and I've seen her for years now, and through all the treatments, and she and her husband have decided we can't do anymore. We're done. And that was decided well over a year ago. We still meet several times a month, and she's still working through that. I'm still being triggered. I'm still upset with my sister-in-law, who's pregnant now and can't shut up about it. I'm still really struggling with these feelings, even though I know this is the path we chose. We decided not to adopt. We decided not to do donor. So and she's like, is there something wrong with me? Because I still want it. I'm like, you're probably going to want it for the rest of your life. I don't want to tell you that you're just one day going to go, I'm so glad I don't have kids, because that's not how she started, right? Some people do start with that and say, we don't want kids. I don't want kids. It's completely different if you try so hard and spend so much time and money and then you can't, So yes, you can embrace your life and find meaning and value without children, but still really hard. And then just all the waiting, all the things that you have to wait for. So what kinds of things do you do when you feel out of control? How do you act or react? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's pretty healthy. My examples are not healthy ones, but I like that one. What are the things maybe that are not so helpful when you feel out of control? You think of anything? Yes. Yep. It starts to sort of rabbit hole, and pretty soon you're like, wait, when did I start doing this, and how did I get to this page? So yep. Okay, let's see what I've got here. So, oh, yep, go ahead. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, that sounds good. But yeah, probably not the most awesome thing, but sometimes helpful. But some of the things I see frequently are this idea of I'm going to figure out a way to make this happen. So, and it becomes excessive. There's like a fine line, I think, between healthy behavior changes or lifestyle changes. There really are some things that you can do that, if not necessarily improving your fertility, you feel better, right? But when it crosses that line almost into compulsion, I've had people who have said things like, the transfer failed because I ate that muffin, or I ran too fast. I shouldn't have gone running, and that's what led to that miscarriage. You name it, I've heard it. Blame and guilt, and because I either didn't do enough or I did too much, and that's just not okay. It just doesn't feel good. It doesn't help to have that, again, that sense of I have to do these things to get to the outcome, and it just doesn't always get you there. And sometimes it stalls you out on the way. um, then you dictate maybe the changes the partner needs to make too, right? Like I talked about earlier, where you're like, hey, you better get on, track. And the person I was just talking about, who's they've now decided that they're going to remain child free, um, that was a big thing where, and I know her husband, so I'm like, he is such a nice guy. She's like, he is just a lump. She's like, he's overweight. He's not listening to the things I'm telling him about these supplements. And like, okay. But that was a way of trying to maintain some control over a situation that was out of control. She was telling herself some of the same things. So it wasn't like she was just picking on him. But anyway, um, trying to live the perfect life, doing all the right things. And this sometimes bleeds over not just into the behaviors, but also I'm trying to be a good person. Maybe if I'm a good person, whatever good person is, then we'll get this thing. Like sometimes, like magical thinking, like if I do this, then that. And sometimes it feels like, well, last time I did this and I got that. And it's like, well, that was probably chance. I'm thinking, like, or nothing you could have actually repeated again. But that idea that if I can just maintain all these things, I'm going to get where I'm going, want to go to. So, and this one's just guys just brought up. So, just researching things, figuring out the plan. You're going to go in and you're going to tell the doctor, I read this and we should do that. And they're like, mm-hmm. They give you that look like, yeah, okay, all right. But feeling like a sense of control, trying to say, like, I'm going to learn everything I can about this. I'm going to figure it out. Maybe I'll come up with something that is it's going to help me, right? Maybe someone told me this thing and I'm like, that could be me. But it's this idea of just going on and on and on. I think being informed is super good. Like, I think people should be informed. I just told someone today, you should call them and ask them why this didn't work, or because she's like, I don't know. I don't know what the next step is. I said, call them. She's like, I'm going to bother them. I go, no, you won't. I will definitely tell you there'll be other people who bothered them way more. But, so that's good to ask and research. But then when it becomes like compulsive almost, or hours are spent, or, it just becomes something that grows out of proportion. So Googling things, jumping from one clinic to another can happen. Sometimes it's good to switch. Sometimes it's good to say, I want to try a different doctor, or I want to try a different clinic, and some people really that's helpful because whatever the doctor or the clinic environment was not helping them to feel heard or collaborated with, or it just didn't feel right. And I'm like, absolutely. But then you have to be careful of too many people involved, too many clinics. I've seen that, luckily not too frequently, but at one point I was working with a couple who had a gestational carrier at this clinic, a gestational carrier at that clinic. She was trying to get pregnant. I'm like, this is out of control. Not only in terms of money, but what if all three of you have a baby at the same time? Like what triplets things? I forgot what they call that. But it's like you have not related, but in terms of the, where they're coming from. But anyway, needing to know all of the steps in the process, like if this, then that. Again, a sense of trying to understand and gain control over things. And then just trying to control other areas of your life. So now you can't control this infertility piece, which is huge, but now maybe I can get the house in order. Maybe I can just be on top of everything at work. Who knows? It's just like trying to, if it won't work here, maybe I'll extrapolate and see if I can gain a little bit of sense of control someplace else. And to some degree, and I'll talk about this in a slide that comes up, to some degree that can be helpful, but not when it like blows out of proportion. It gets too big and it's now you're alienating people. Now you're, it's just not working for you. Okay. And then another way that we lose control is by living in the past or the future. So with the past, that's governed by regrets, guilt, shame, choices that were not made, things that have not been done. And it's like, if only is sort of, what starts that process. If only I had done this or that. But thinking about that, 95% of the time, honestly, doesn't change anything because we can't go back and change it. And I'll tell people, if you had known what you know now, absolutely, you would have done this differently. But when you made that decision or took that step, you were using all the elements and factors within your control at that time, and you made a good decision. You did what you needed to do, whatever it was. And I believe that every time. I think we make decisions because we of the things that are telling us the things that we have to help us make that. But after the fact, it's easy to look back and think, oh, that was dumb, or I should have known that. And I don't ever think that's true. Then if you go in the other direction, you're planning the future. You're already several steps ahead. You're predicting the worst is usually what's happening. I'm not meeting very many people who are like, everything's going to be good. Not people I'm meeting in this context, right? It's a sense of nothing's gone right so far. So whatever's ahead is probably going to be a failure too. And I'm like, well, how are you going to get yourself geared up to do it? And I'm like, I don't know, but I guess I have to. But they don't think it's going to turn out, right? So what are the things that you can actually control? What can you do to let go of things? I like this sort of imagery, like imagining you're in a car. So you are not driving. So you feel kind of anxious, like, I don't know about this person who's at the wheel, where we're going. But you can get anxious about that, or you can just kind of look out the window and enjoy the scenery. And you may wish you were the one driving or whatever it is, but also like, well, at least I can see this lovely fields on the right side of the road or whatever. So, just kind of having that idea. So that's an example of letting go of things that are uncontrollable and living in the present. Just not loving that you're not driving or not loving that things aren't working the way you would like them to work, but how can I just maintain in this and maybe get something out of it and not be miserable along the way. So here's some other kind of maybe healthy control options. When everything feels out of control, we want to grab onto whatever we can to stabilize. But for healthy control, sometimes we can figure out ways to manage our world in some neutral ways or some beneficial ways. Can anybody think of some examples before I show you what I've got? Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Okay, I'll go ahead and keep going so we don't run out of time. So a neutral one, and I will tell people this, like for some people, this would not be a good option, but when I feel out of control, if I can go organize a drawer or maybe put some stuff together to bring to Goodwill or maybe sort through some clothes, whatever it is, like I feel like, okay, that feels good. I can look at this thing that I did and it has an outcome. It looks awesome and I could do it. Like it was within my control and it's neutral, right? And it may not be that thing, but often it's something that is just, I've heard people say like gardening. So you can go out there, you can plant the seeds, or the plant, take care of it. And then you've got, the flowers or the fruit or whatever it might be, the vegetables. It's neutral, but it lets you feel like I did this. I made this happen. So and there's lots of things like that that are neutral or beneficial, increasing healthy lifestyle behaviors within reason. Planning a trip or a vacation, just an excursion. Sometimes it's like, I can plan this vacation. I'll say to people, what's the next thing you're going to do that's going to be fun? Can we put like that carrot out there that, all this stuff is coming up, but can we put something out there? It may be we can't leave the city, but maybe we have a vacation in our house and we watch movies and eat pizza or whatever it is. It make it work for you. And brainstorming what can actually be something I can control and do that makes me feel better. Okay, so what is within your control? Your mental health. When you hear the idea that we can't control our world necessarily, or things that happen, but we can control how we feel about it or how we react or respond to it. That's what I'm talking about there when I say you can control your mental health. That is powerful. That is powerful. It's that idea of glass half full, half empty. It's the same exact thing, but how you're looking at it is what makes the difference with that. So controlling your mental health in a healthy manner. Self-care behavior, and again, we're going to be careful not to be compulsive, but taking good care of your body. If it feels good and you're doing it and it doesn't bring some negative consequences, I'm all for it. How does it feel when you go for a run? Miserable. I really don't want to do it, but I should. Then I'm like, can we not do it? Did someone tell you had to do it? I mean, if someone told you did, okay, maybe. But most of the time we're doing things that don't, help necessarily because we think we should. So what actually feels good and is healthy? Sleep is a huge one. When you're sad, when you're anxious, it's hard to sleep. When you don't sleep, you become sad and anxious. It's a vicious cycle, right? So how to figure that one out? And some people are sleeping too much. It's not always not sleeping. Sometimes it's like, I'm just going to go escape, get in my bed, get the covers over me, and I'm going to stay in there as long as I can because I don't want to face all this stuff that's going on. So really kind of looking at your sleep. Most people are not sleeping enough. It's not the other way around, but kind of looking at how can I improve this? Because I know my mood's going to get better if I do. Taking a break from social media. Yeah, I don't use social media, so I'm not going to be the person who's like, okay, this is what you should do. But I definitely hear from a lot of people. While that can be a good source of support and information, it can also tip in the other direction and become competitive comparisons. We're not good enough. How come, and it gets unhealthy. Only you can tell where that line is when it tips the balance. But when you feel that, that's when like, okay, I'm not going to do that. Okay. Communicating with others is another one. I think someone said like seeking support, talking to other people. Again, it needs to be the right support, right? What makes you feel good. And sometimes it's the other thing of setting those boundaries with other people. It is saying, that was hurtful. I know you didn't mean it, but here's what you could say that would be better. Here's what you could do that would help us more. Maybe the interpersonal boundary is not going around some people at certain points, right? But deciding like what feels good and what doesn't, and can I set those limits? And I can't tell you how often people will say, well, I have to go to the baby shower, or I can't tell them that hurt my feelings. And I'm like, why not? What's the rule there? Like, please don't go to the baby shower. Can I be the one to tell you not to? Can you blame me? My therapist said you can't go to the baby shower. But setting those boundaries is so healthy. It sometimes feels like, well, this is not what a nice person does, or someone's gonna think I'm rude or whatever. I'm like, but if it is painful and it's going to deepen your pain or whatever those difficult feelings are to do this thing, why do it, right? So okay, so this next is our last section, just talking about letting go. And my next slide is a video, but I'm not going to play it because it's there's some technical difficulties, but it is a really good one. So if you're ever looking, like there's some really crappy YouTube videos and also TED Talks that are kind of like, but there's some that are really good. And I think this one is good. It's called A Journey Through Infertility Over Terror's Edge. And I think it's maybe about 3 or 4 years old, but it's one of my favorites. There's a couple other ones that are good, but this is a good, it's very long. It's like 20 minutes long. So I had a snippet, but it's not going to play correctly. So I'm just going to skip it. So, okay, let me go to the next slide here. Okay, so let's talk about ways to let go. So these are going to be some specific coping strategies or ideas or skills that you might be able to use. And I want to let you know too, some of these things that I'm talking about today, you may think that doesn't resonate. That doesn't fit for me. And that's totally okay. This is not like a one size fits all kind of scenario. These are some suggestions. A lot of times what I'll tell people is, here's some things to think about or try. Come back next week and tell me which ones failed and which ones succeeded. And then the ones that succeeded will help me know the next things that we can look at that'll be like that. Because everybody is different. And it's better to have like a ton of tools, and then sometimes one works, sometimes it doesn't. They're all in your toolbox that you can use when you need to. So the idea of thinking about feeling hopeful, not necessarily for each of the steps along the way, but for the goal at the end of the journey. Frequently, that's what I'm hearing from people who are needing to make really difficult choices and decisions that don't feel good. They're things that they never imagined they would ever do or have to do, but it's in service of the goal. It's in service of the goal of having a child, building that family. And so keeping that, even though it may feel like it's like 500 miles away, like that's slowly we're moving toward that thing. So, and I tell people, don't go too far down that road. However, it's going to have, I mean, how many of you in the room can say, when we started this journey, I thought it was going to look like this, and it went exactly like that, right? Most things don't. There's things that happen that we can't control that get in the way. We take a detour, something we never would have predicted will happen. So, and asking yourself, like, when have I made some sort of choice or decision and I never would have predicted it before? That'll come up frequently. If someone will say, I never would have imagined we'd do another IVF. I never imagined we'd think about a donor or adoption. I said at the beginning, we'll never do this thing. And now we're doing it. I'm like, yes, because the road changed, the path changed. At the beginning, that fit, but now it's something different. So just kind of thinking to yourself, like, I don't really know how I'm going to get there, but I know I'm going in the right direction. Sometimes it feels like you're not. Sometimes it feels like you're stuck, you're going the wrong way. And so it's important, to check in. If you have a partner, you have someone who can kind of say, you know what? I know all the things you've been doing or we've been doing, and I know we are going in the right direction. That even if it feels convoluted, we're going in the right way. Reminding yourself of why you're doing what you're doing, or why you and your partner are going along this path. So it's not the same as the idea of, what are we trying to achieve? Building a family. Maybe it's not going to look the way we thought. Definitely the timeline is probably not going to be what you thought, right? But that's why we're doing this. And sometimes I remind people too that even deeper than that is, and this is true if you have a partner, not necessarily if you don't, but because of us together, our marriage, our relationship, our love, that's why we want a family, right? So that's another reason I'll say that's also why you're doing this, because it's important to you, both of you, this mutual goal. Okay, so living one day or one step at a time. That's a typo. Waiting until you have the appropriate data to make the next decision. So it's that propensity to want to say, I'm going to figure out plan A, plan B, plan C, and plan D. And I'm one of those people, like, I want to have all the things lined up. And I feel like that, okay, then I'll be prepared, right? And then it's plan Z. I'm like, okay, well, I spent all that time thinking about those 4 plans, and now it's something completely different, and I'm worn out. So waiting, until you get that information, and I'll say that to people all the time, because it is that sense of what then and and if and then, and I'll say, okay, hold up, let's get to the next scan, let's get to the next appointment, let's get to whatever it is, the next thing in line, and not go any further, because sometimes that the next thing will dictate what comes after it, right? And you won't know. And just saying, like, how do I get to that next step? And I don't even need to know all of the steps. I'd love to know all of the steps and see the future, but I don't need to. I'd like to, but I don't need to. And really staying in the here and now. Sometimes what I'll say to people is, what is true right now? And sometimes those true things have nothing to do with family building. Sometimes they do. And you can say, because I'm working with people who do conceive, and I'll say, you are pregnant right now. They're like, but I'm only 5 weeks pregnant. Well, you're still pregnant right now, not going any further than that. Or in the here and now, I have a home, I have friends, I have family, I have people who love and care for me, a job I like, hopefully. Like, those are true things too, remembering those things as well, even if all the fertility care is not going the way that you would hope. Um, so these are some of the things that infertility can't take away from you. Hopefully, marriage and partnership, career, it should never get to the point where infertility is threatening these things so significantly. I'm not saying there won't be bumps along the road, but these shouldn't be things that are obliterated by infertility. Friendships, people who matter to you, including family, your history, no matter what, you've gotten to where you are today because of your history. And frequently when I'm talking with people, I'm saying, you are stronger than you think. You're resilient. You don't even realize it. Most of the time, I'm not really teaching anybody anything new. I'm helping them to see the things they already know about themselves, but forgot at some point. Your home, your belongings, your pets. For a lot of people, their pets that's very important, almost as important as the partner. So that's something that infertility can't take away. Okay, so tools and reminders. So, building your support network is important. And like I said earlier, whatever size you want that to be. If it's one person, I'm good. If it's 50 people, I'm good. Whatever that means for you, but it needs to be true support. Actually, it feels good most of the time, that type of support. And it often may include unexpected people that may be support group members. It could be people you never thought would understand. You posted something on social media and someone wrote back and said, I went through that same thing, or gosh, I'm thinking of you, or whatever it might be. And sometimes the people, like I said, the people who you think are going to be there for you maybe aren't. And I'm saying this is just not their thing. It doesn't mean that you completely reject them, hopefully. I mean, if they've always been kind of like that, maybe you do reject them. But a lot of times it's like, this person can't be your support right now. Maybe they will be at a later point, or when they're done with whatever they're doing that's causing them to not be the best support or whatever. But don't necessarily write everyone off, but kind of put them on hold and concentrate on the people who can really be there for you. So I ask people, what are your sources of strength and resilience? And sometimes this is a really hard question for people. When you feel bad about yourself, you don't feel strong, you don't feel resilient. I don't want you necessarily, unless you want to, say out loud what you think your sources of strength and resilience are, but think in your head right now. Think about it. Think about your life up until now, not just today or this last week or whenever, but what can you look back on and say, this, I was strong when I did this, or I was resilient and bounced back from that, or when people talk about me, they consider me to be this, and it's a good thing. And if you can't figure it out, if there's nothing that's coming to mind, talk with someone who loves you, talk with someone you trust, and ask them. I asked one of my long-term therapy clients recently. I said, what are your strengths? And she sat there for about 5 minutes. Mind you, this is someone with a PhD. She's got 4 kids. She's got an awesome job, a house, all the things, lots of friends. She could come up with nothing, no source of strength, no resilience. I'm like, what about your PhD? Like, that's a pretty big deal. That took a lot of work and effort, right? And she goes, she said that she thought maybe they gave it to her by accident, or maybe they felt sorry for her, and she believed that. I'm like, okay, well, it's just you tell yourself these things and you don't take credit for the things that you do and you're strong with. So think about that. And like I said, if you can't come up with your own, ask somebody you trust to give you a few clues. She did ask her husband, he actually came up with a pretty good list of stuff. And the one she liked the best was is that she's kind, you know. So he said you're really kind, and that really struck her beyond any of the other things she's accomplished. That was her core. She's a kind person. So, what are your tools and your resources, not just internal strengths and resilience, but also the things around you? And it could be your support network, it could be your ability to organize information, it could be sort of external things in your world that you can count as a tool or a resource. And this is an important one, like asking yourself, and everybody could answer and say something has been a challenge in my life. What challenges have you already survived or made it through? And maybe you were a little bit worse for the wear on the other side, but you made it through, right? And a lot of times people aren't thinking about that because you're so focused on what's going on right now in the here and now. But I'll say, like, this can't be the first time that you've had a struggle in your life, right? And I'm like, no. And people will tell me, like a parent died, or they had to file for bankruptcy, or they lost a house or whatever, and they persevered, they made it through, they survived that. I'm like, what did you do to survive that? What did you do? Not someone gave you a whole bunch of money or whatever, but what are the things that you have done to survive and stay strong? And often people can actually say, this isn't the hardest thing that I've done. There have been harder things. And I don't love that there have been harder things, but that teaches you that I've made it through this, or we've survived this. Sometimes it's a partner thing where you can be like, this is the thing that's really testing us, or maybe there was something that did before, but we've made it through that. And I'll say, what did you do to make it through that? How did you do that? And that's helpful information because you can realize, like, I am stronger than I thought. So I mentioned this, I think, too, that sometimes infertility and fertility care just push everything else to the periphery. It eclipses everything, all these important things, the family, the friends, sometimes our faith, our hobbies, our self-care, everything gets shoved to the side because you're spending a lot of money and time. So you want to focus on this. And it's like, I'm not doing fun things. I'm not reading a book. I'm whatever it is, that brings you joy, or the people who bring you joy. Those things are kind of being left by the wayside. So remembering, what are the things you can bring back into the focus, into the here and now? What things do you enjoy? And I'll have people sort of like make as long a list as they can come up with. I say like 20. Some people struggle with that, but I'm like, if you get to 20, keep going. But what are the things that make you feel good? And sometimes it's the simplest thing. And we'll have a slide in a little bit where we'll talk about what those things might be, but it doesn't have to be anything fancy, expensive, whatever, but the things that give you pleasure, the things that are important that you can bring back into the focus. Okay, so this slide is about like flipping the emotions. With love, whom do I love? Who loves me? I can turn to these people for support. So all the emotions, the hard ones we talked at the beginning, flipping these into, okay, there are good things here, good things I can focus on. Love for myself, my body, my strength, gratitude. Sometimes it can feel like there's not much to feel grateful for. I get that. But if you really dig, there's probably something. It may just be, I'm grateful that I'm still standing. I'm grateful that, we haven't lost our home because we spent so much money on this, treatment, whatever it is. It's like, I am grateful for something. Now, that does not mean that you're not mad or upset or sad or scared about all the things that you've lost or that you don't have currently. I'm not saying you should be like, everything's great. But the balance of those things, there's some on each side of that. And sometimes there's a whole lot more on the I'm not grateful for this side, but there's at least, I'm hoping, a couple or a few on that grateful side. And again, it's those things that maybe infertility can't change or take away. Those might be the things that you're grateful for. Patience, hard one, especially if you're an anxious person like me. You're not very patient, and you have to be, because like You can't control all the elements and you're waiting on everybody else and all the things. But how can I spend my time productively while I wait? So probably scrolling through the internet, and doing some things that really don't bring you anything, not the best, most productive option. But productive things to do during the waiting, I always say just taking good care of yourself. What are the things you can do to take care of yourself? Because you want to conserve your energy because you're going to need it, right? Having hope. And I'll ask people, has there been a time in your life when you lost hope, but then you were surprised when the things went the way that you hoped they would? There's probably lots of examples when you were hopeful and it didn't go the way you wanted. And I totally believe that there may be more of those things, but there have probably been times where you really thought things were not going to go well and they did. And they could be small things, but they're still there. And we're more likely to remember the disasters, the embarrassments, the things that didn't go right than we're going to be to remember the things that did. So the things that we wanted that we did get or that did go okay. So I like this. I like this idea a lot. So it's this mindfulness, present focus idea of, it says, one day my teacher held up a beautiful teacup. To me, this cup is already broken, he said, because I know it's fate, but I can enjoy it fully here and now. And when it's gone, it's gone. So living in the moment, remembering what you have now, enjoying what you have now. And that helps to let go of the worrying about the future or the past, right? And frequently, when you are in the midst of a stressor, you're not living in the here and now. You're not grounded in the moment. You're imagining what the next step and the next step. And there's so many people who do accomplish something, right? Something really important or good. And then they're already thinking, what's the next thing in line? They're not enjoying that accomplishment or that good thing. It's like, but what's the next thing I need to prepare for? And it's so common. And when the day's over, you've lost the day. You don't get that day back, that week back. Living in that moment, and sometimes it feels like it's mostly garbage. But what are the things that are here right now that I can have that have value? Okay, so what are the things that you guys do to manage stress? What kinds of things make you feel relaxed or better? Working out. Okay. What was that? Yep. Okay. What was that? Yeah, oh, yep, me too. Yep. Other things that you like? Yeah. I like that. So I'll show you what I've got. So deep breathing is one. That's a like if you're doing deep breathing correctly, like you can't be stressed out. It doesn't mean the solution has come to you or everything's fixed, but you can't, it's physiologically impossible to sort of have your sympathetic nervous system and your parasympathetic going at the same time. So deep breathing gets that parasympathetic nervous system in line, and you can think a little bit more clearly. So I always recommend deep breathing. I used to run anxiety disorder groups when I was back in grad school, which was like a long time ago. But that was the one thing that really helped most people. That's what we taught them to do. When you're having a panic attack, start doing the deep breathing. And you can find all kinds of options online. Pick the one that works for you. There's different ones, but I find that one to be super helpful. Massage. I just talked with someone today and she's like, well, nothing's going right, but I did make an appointment for acupuncture. So I'm like, good. It's really been proven to be helpful with anxiety. There are some acupuncturists who believe that they can improve pregnancy rates and fertility. I don't know. The research is kind of equivocal about that, but hey, if it makes you feel better and you feel like you're doing something that's helping, do it, right? It's not going to be harmful. Music, which was brought up, and I feel exactly the same way. Music, I've got a playlist of I don't even know how many songs, but some are like pump me up, some like make me feel better, like they're happy, some are angry, then they go along with my bad mood. But having that is helpful. Sometimes just having alone time That one comes up a lot with people when I ask them, how do you manage stress? And like, just having some time to myself where I can do whatever. And on the other side of that, time with loved ones. Time outside comes up a lot, taking a vacation, hobbies. Sometimes just having a familiar routine can be helpful when you've been at the whim of everybody else in the clinic and all the other things, having some sort of routine. Blogging, journaling, progressive muscle relaxation is another one. And that's sort of where you tense your muscles and then you let them go and you're like, oh, that's what it feels like to relax. Frequently, we don't even know when we are clenching our jaw, kind of making a fist with our hands, doing things that are tension producing, right? And so, like, I know, like, if I'm anxious, like, I'm probably squinting, I'm probably grinding my teeth. And so, when I know now that's where it is. So then I'll do the progressive muscle relaxation, but just kind of in this zone. I'm like, yep, I was definitely feeling anxious. So exercise and physical activity is huge. And it doesn't have to be a marathon. It doesn't have to be anything big. It can just be moving around. Some people like aromatherapy, spending time with their pets, going for a drive. I've got a lot of people who like video games or games on their phone, telling a joke and laughing, which can be really hard when you feel crappy. But you could see like my sense of humor is sort of like a little bit on the dark side. So, and I'll tell my friends who are like, what can I do to help you? I'll say, can you make me laugh? Please make me laugh. Right. So, and reading, something like that. For a lot of people, reading or maybe the video games or something like that is an escape. And I think sometimes a little bit of a escape is a good thing. You can come back refreshed. It's kind of like taking a nap, maybe, but I'm like reading a book and I'm into the book and I'm not thinking about whatever it is that's making me feel bad. Um, so this one is, like I said, I like music. I like the lyrics to this. It's a really old song. I think it was popular in the 80s. But anyways, but that's the lyrics and like listening to that and going, yeah. And it's a really upbeat song. I'm like, yep, that makes me feel good. And then of course this one couldn't not put Let It Go in here since that's in our title. But I like to see like not necessarily the melody, but the lyrics and what that means to me. And it's like, yep, not going to control me. So we're at the summary. Infertility is hard. Fertility care is hard. It's all really hard. It is not easy at all. Remembering that no feeling is bad. They're all normal. There is no sort of normal, honestly. Whatever you're feeling is real and it's okay. Share feelings in the way that's right for you. So sharing with other people, sharing with your journal, sharing anonymously online, whatever it is, but share those. Maybe it's you're talking to yourself. You're just sharing it with yourself. That's okay. But sharing those feelings, somehow getting them out. We figured out today that most aspects of infertility are uncontrollable. Many are unknown. There's nothing that you can do to change those, accepting that. Sometimes the only thing you can control is your own response or reaction, how you respond to it. And I'm not saying you're not going to have an immediate reaction that feels like that wasn't very good. But then you're like, okay, no, I'm going to. So you might not at first, kind of have that reaction that you feel good about, but think about it. Maybe the next time you'll say, I'm not going to let that thing get to me. I'm not going to do whatever it is that then felt worse after I did it. So you can really only impact the here and now. So staying present, focused, taking things one day or one step at a time. And it's called reciprocal inhibition, but it's that same idea, but it's instead of being about like your nervous system, it's about just an overall, how you're feeling. If you feel good, you can't feel bad at the same time. Like it may on some level, like you feel bad, so it's not as good as it normally would be to eat that ice cream, but it still is good, right? So do more things that make you feel good. Put it in your calendar. Make sure that you tell somebody so then they hold you accountable to do that good thing. And as many of them as you can every single day. Make that list and go down it every day. And then you're stronger than you realize. I think that's true with everybody. We don't give ourselves enough credit.